With the first pick.
Alrighty, it is Thursday, May 29th. You might have seen me look up in the corner because I didn't know what date it was, so I had to check it out. I'm Jared. That's Tyler. We got MLB Draft season right around the corner, so we're going to do a little draft talk. Tyler's got a top 300 MLB draft board coming out here soon, so we want to give you a little bit of a preview. But first, Tyler, how are you doing today, man? Oh, you're muted.
I knew I forgot to do something.
If anyone wants to know how Tyler's day is going.
Hey, it's a good day because the new laptop came in.
Mm-hmm.
However, we don't talk about how the old laptop broke. So yeah, basically, long story short, still very tired from ACC tournament last week. We had what's the best way to describe it? The 4-game days, the Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, awful.
18-hour days. It was like 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning. Get 4 hours of sleep, come back. That definitely did a lot, but had that great experience. Laptop broke like first day, so the hinge kind of just froze. Essentially, was the way to put it. So the screen was like coming off, and it was a whole mess. Like the Ethernet was the only thing that would work because I couldn't get the actual Wi-Fi to work. So that's why everything's kind of a little bit delayed. And then, of course, I absolutely ate concrete on Monday night, so still pretty sore from that. But apart from that, new laptop, new ranks, like here we are. We're ready. We're ready to roll. We're like 6 weeks away from the draft at this point.
Yeah, I'm going to timestamp this as Tyler's shit week. That's what we're going to do. Put it on the timestamp. So if in case anybody wants a full breakdown, they can just click the link, go right here, all about it.
Yeah, everybody likes to hear about my, downfalls, depressive thoughts. Like, yay! Let's see what happened in Tyler's world this week. Did he fall and eat shit again?
Yeah, no, he did. So I'll confirm that for you.
The worst part was I was dreaming about falling down the stairs at the DVAP at the ACC tournament, and then I trip over it was like a gas, not a drain pipe, but it was like a gas pipe covering in downtown Raleigh. Never saw it. Nice. So it was nice to have a meeting with the bricks and the concrete on the floor. Like, they're good dudes. They hurt, but they're good guys to talk to when you're hurting.
Well, we want to talk about the opposite of falling and talk about some of the biggest risers in your draft board. Look at that transition. I'm proud of that one, actually. So I'll throw that out
yourself on the back.
Yeah. Let's talk about Kade Anderson. He's now probably top 10 on your board. I think he was in the 20s, 30s in our last update. I saw him at the SEC tournament, just absolutely filthy, dominated for LSU. Anthony Ianson, another draft guy, followed him and looked just as good. But talk a little bit about Kade, kind of what he brings to the table.
I was actually talking about Kade earlier today with a couple friends of mine, and I think the biggest thing when you look at Kade is the pitchability, the stuff, the projection, and also the fact that he's a draft-eligible sophomore, so he's got age on his side. And when you talk about age, like you think about teams that are model incentivized. They use their models to find guys, and Anderson's going to be one of the guys that pops up pretty heavily on models. Mainly because of the fact that he's just over 21, has 4 really good pitches, and just looking at the whole thing, like we saw him. Sorry, like you saw him last week. I saw him the week before in South Carolina, and fastball command can kind of come and go, but it's still like a really good carry fastball. Has some cut. I think he's missed like 35% bats on the year. But I think the thing that really stood out to me when I saw him was the breaking stuff and the off-speed pitches that he has. The new slider has been kind of just a wonder to be added to his arsenal, in my opinion. Like, it's really kind of part of the reason why he's up this high on the board now. He kind of manipulates shape. So he'll either have like a little baby sweeper that gets like, roughly 8 inches of sweep, not like a full-blown like 15 inches. But he'll do that, and then he'll kind of turn it into like a short form curveball with like -7 vert, 7 horizontal, and it's thrown really hard at 84. And looking at what he's able to do with that, I think that in of itself is like an above average plus offering. And if you could do that consistently and land it for strikes like he can, it's very valuable. And of course, he's got the bigger bender. He doesn't use as much, but obviously, I think he's had more fun including his new changeup into the mix, which has a 50% whiff rate on the year. He sells it very well, has great deception. The shape's interesting. It's like a very high vert fading changeup, if that makes any sense. There's not as much vertical separation from the fastball and changeup perspective, like 10 inches, but likely going to lose some vertical carry as he goes to the pro balls because it's just how different they are. So, for me, looking at that, I think it's a 55 fastball. I would wager the sliders in between 55 and 60. If you want to push it to 60, I have no complaints about it. That's one where I kind of like sit there and it's like, go from there. I think changeup's 55, not 50, but 55. And then the curveball, when he does use it, it's a true 6. It's just a matter of how often does he break it out? Does he use it at the next level? But if we're doing that, I think overall it's like 55s on the fastball and changeup, and then 6s on the slider and the curveball.
It's pretty good. For context, in the SEC tournament against Texas A&M, he went 6 innings, 3 earned, 12 Ks. He struck out 8 batters in the first 3 innings. Pretty good. Like, not bad at all. Granted, it's like a Texas A&M team that was struggling. No Grahovic. You had Jace LaViolette with a broken hand playing and got 2 RBIs, I think, off of Kade Anderson. But still, man, like, he would get himself into trouble, and he had the stuff to get out of it. Like, he would get the strikeout as soon as he got it. Yeah, he gave up 3 earned runs, but still enough to help his team win, and he's still facing some pretty good hitters in the SEC. So he's just super impressive. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, like you mentioned the 3 earned runs, and that's kind of been a trend all year. And it's mainly because of the fact that he struggles to get lefties out. Pretty fastball heavy. I think he kind of relies too much on the fastball slider, or he just doesn't command the fastball enough to kind of like get out of jams against lefties. I think lefties have like an 850 OPS against him this year or something like that, which is something that's going to need to be worked out at the next level.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you, like I had mentioned before, the projection, the pitchability, you kind of look at that as pointers. And I think he does end up throwing quite a bit harder at the next level. He's averaged like 93 this year. He might be sitting mid-90s at the next level, depending on his org fit. So it'll be interesting to see kind of like how a dev team kind of works with him to kind of get over that jump, or get over that hill, rather. But I think it's a pretty solid, if not SP2, probably SP1 profile in this class, because some of the other arms haven't really put themselves into position to really put a stronghold on that SP1 category,
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about it before too. Jamie Arnold still probably in that category as SP1, but he's had some struggles down the stretch in the ACC, and he's still dominated this year. But I mean, to see Kade like be able to put himself in that conversation, it's pretty cool. Especially given where he was at the beginning of the year. Like, you knew the talent was there, but he's just really taken it to another level this year.
Yeah, and this is 100% the guy we thought we would see coming out of high school as well, because he was very highly touted as an underclassman. But if I remember correctly, he had TJ going into his senior year, so he missed most of his senior season, gets to LSU, and here we are kind of talking about a guy that's gone from, he was a midweek starter at one point last year, pushed into a relief role, and now he's the Friday night ace for a team that now has Omaha aspirations and is hosting a regional. So, it's a very good look for a kid that, I guess not to say most people counted him out, but after the injury, you kind of wondered what happened, what was going to happen. But now that we've kind of reached this point, hey, he's a legitimate first rounder.
No, I love it. Second guy I want to talk about, Mason Neville out of Oregon. He went from 176 on our board to 26 overall. Oregon outfielder, leading the NCAA Division I in home runs. Absolutely has completely turned it around in his junior year now at Oregon. Just been super impressive. Also on the Clock podcast alum. Great dude, great mindset. Has really talked about kind of the maturity that he's had at the plate, at the dish, and kind of taking that mindset. That's really well helped him take off. But what do you got on Mason?
He's a very interesting case because you'd mentioned before, like he jumped from 176 to 26.
Yeah.
And that ranking's still not final for what it's worth. Like, still trying to figuring out, but he's going to be in the back end of that first round category or even the comp round. But we mentioned like fits, and I think even before he got to high school, there were teams wondering if they should take him then. Goes to Arkansas, doesn't have a big role set up for him because Arkansas is just loaded, and goes to Oregon last year, shows what he can be, and he takes it to another level this year where, like you'd mentioned, he's leading D1 in home runs.
Yeah.
And it's really big pull side power emphasis. And the thing with me looking at like the pull side power is that is the most successful fly ball or just any batted ball event in baseball is pulling a fly ball. Because it's just, you're more than likely going to see somebody go over the fence or probably put it down in the gaps or something. So, there's a lot of damage that can be created from the pulled fly ball. And if I remember correctly, I think Neville has like 15 plus full side bombs. So he's put a lot of emphasis towards that. Hammers fastballs really well. Doesn't chase a ton. He does have some bat the ball issues against like sliders, changeups, which I think it was like a 40% whiff rate on sliders coming into the Big Ten tournament. But, you kind of take the strikeouts in terms of getting the production that you have there. Like it's a good trade-off to have, especially for a guy that walks as much as he does. I think he's got like 50 walks on the year or something. And he still has an OPS north of, I think, 1.15.
Yeah.
So, just looking at the full development of him at Oregon, he found his fit. He's currently displaying what he truly is. I think he is a back-end first rounder at this point. And I think even at 176, where we had him at the top 200, was selling him short. I really do. Because he was really doing what Corbin Dickerson was doing, but then cranked it up another level, if that makes any sense. So, really excited to see what this Oregon team can do around them going down into regional play here, because they are hosting. They have the chance to finally knock down the door, go back to Omaha for the first time in what feels like 50 years, I think. Really excited to see what they can do, but Neville has definitely put himself into, back in first round consideration. Maybe he even goes even higher than that. We don't know yet. We'll see what happens. But the power from the left side with pull side emphasis and the field to hammer fastballs, as well as the ability to stay in either center field or right field, get a double thumbs up from me on that one.
Yeah. And I think the coolest thing about him too is kind of his story in powering through adversity, right? Like he goes to Arkansas SEC just as like 0 for 20 with 20 strikeouts basically when he got there. Not necessarily that bad, but it was just a struggle for him to find his footing. Makes a transfer to Oregon, like you said, figures it out. It had a good sophomore year. It wasn't terrible, but he really just broke out this junior year, like put it all together. And it's like the easy guy to root for in these scenarios. So awesome for him. Is there other guys that you want to mention that have been kind of big risers for you?
So this one I needed to cross-check a little bit, but I do feel confident now. And granted, Jared, I know when you look at the board right now, he's not going to be at the spot he needs to be, but I still need to write out his third. But it's Logan Sauve from West Virginia. Kind of really have enjoyed that profile. And like looking into West Virginia, we've talked about it on the college side recently as like, this is a group of guys that can hit, has the pitching, but then looking, more meticulously into some of these hitters, started to kind of find some of these hot guys. And Sauve was one of them where he's got the power from the right side, and he's got the traits to stick behind the plate long term. I do believe it's another case of where like loves hammering fastballs, which is one of my scouting pillars, but also has some issues with secondary pitches, which I think can be cleaned up at the next level. I think his swing right now is a little bit more flatter, so he's getting a lot more ground balls. Or he's also trying to do too much in the air at the same time, where he's kind of just topping everything and it's being, pummeled into the dirt. But has eclipsed 110 miles an hour on exit velocities, has good pull side power, has good field to hit. He's a guy that should probably profile somewhere in like the round 4 to 5 range. Personally, this is a guy that, in between the top 200 and now has kind of put himself into that tier of catchers where there's upside, there's depth to the position. You take it and run with it. And I think he's a good pro to have. He's almost 22. So I believe he was eligible last year. Could be mistaken on that, but he's a guy that has caught my attention for me. And then in looking even farther up, like I'm going to mispronounce his name for the life of me. Remo Indomenico, I do believe his name. Remo, if you're watching this and I mispronounced it, I apologize. But
Is that REMO?
REMO, yes. He is an
Okay.
Oklahoma State commit from, I think it's the First Academy.
I typed that out and actually spelled it right, and I'm very impressed with myself right now.
I'm proud of you, buddy. I'm proud of you. But like Remo is an interesting case of power speed upside, and like power speed guys are pretty valuable in this day of age. And I think he's got the hit tool to kind of make it work. He's good athleticism from the left side, beautiful swing. And he's going to be young for the class too. So he'll barely be 18 on draft day. And we had mentioned before these models or these teams with models that kind of pinpoint the younger guys in the class because it gives them more time to develop. He is one of those guys where he's going to have plenty of time to develop. He's got the power speed in his back pocket, and there's good arm strength too. So I think he's a legitimate right fielder to the next level to where somebody takes a shot on that somewhere in the middle of a day two. So looking at like the 4 to 6 range in terms of rounds, he's a guy that I like. And if there's one more guy to really point out too, Michael Winter from Shawnee Mission East High School out there in Kansas. He's a Dartmouth commit, believe it or not. So Jared, Ivy League. But he's an interesting one. He had, I think, a broken back as a sophomore in high school. So he's been behind the 8-ball recovering from that. But this year he's added weight. He's loose, is athletic from the right side. I think he's like 6'3", 195, so you could probably add another 20 pounds of weight to it to make him look more physical and see a potential jump in velo because he's already touched 95 this spring. And he's already had heat because of his teammate, Nate Schulte, who's a Vanderbilt commit. He's also been up into the mid to upper 90s. So Winter, I think, is a big winner because of that, to where his teammates getting a lot of the attention, but now he's put himself into the spotlight as well. And being that Dartmouth commit, he's very young. I think he's only going to be like 18 in a month on draft day. Been up to 95 with a 2-seam sinker, 2 good breaking balls, and he's got feel for a changeup. So, it's young multiple clay for a dev team to really get their hands on and sink their teeth into. So he's a guy that I'm looking for. If his number's not too high, you can draw him away from Dartmouth. He's a guy to look for in like the 4 to 7 range, or maybe even be higher than that, depending on how the team values his arsenal moving forward. But he's a guy that's really intrigued me all spring, and he's going to be someone that's up there on the list a little bit.
I love it. I invented a new game that we're going to go to in a second, but first, going to do a quick ad read. On the Clock is presented by our friends at Titan Bat Company. So if you're looking for the highest quality handcrafted wood bats in the game, Titan Bats has you covered with premium maple, ash, and birch game bats in 10 different models and colors to fit your swinging style. As you gear up for the spring season, Titan Bats is the perfect option for your next bat. In addition to game bats ranging from youth baseball to softball to men's baseball, Titan Bats also offers award bats to make the perfect gift to celebrate your teammate, coach, or baseball fan in your life. So check them out at titanbats.com and use the code JB15 for 15% off your first order. So I invented a game. It's called Who Would You Rather Have? So I'm going to pick 2 guys, and you're going to go through with which guy you'd rather have. And I'm going to do like a college versus prep here to start. Shortstop Aiva Arquette out of Oregon State, or shortstop Billy Carlson out of Corona. Oh, you're muted again.
Why am I going to do that? That's a tough one because Aiva obviously 6'5", 220, really projectable, has the tools now to kind of stick a shortstop. He's proven to us that. But also there's questions about the hit tool, that there's some swing and miss against secondaries. He chases a bit more than you'd like to see. And that was something we wanted to kind of see change this year, was less aggression to the approach and kind of just see how well that kind of corresponds with like an increase in contact against secondaries. Haven't really seen that, but it's big power from the right side, maybe a bit stiff, and you can work that out at the next level. But Carlson also kind of looking at the profile, is a big, twitchy, athletic kid with a prowess at shortstop. You know he's going to be a shortstop because it's a 70 arm, 60 glove. But he's obviously got a lot of growing to do with his body. He's already shown you power. It might be average power at the next level, maybe more, depending on, you look at the swing. He's got that tight coil. He kind of drifts a little bit. So somebody's going to have to work with him to kind of keep his head and his shoulders kind of still through contact instead of having this drift down the plate. And that might be something of concern for some teams. So I'll go Aiva on that one, mainly because he's produced across 2 to 3 years in college, has kind of shown you that he can stick at shortstop now compared to a guy who, you dream on that kind of prototype.
Yeah.
It's a really projectable body, tons of twitch, can stick at shortstop, but you also got to wonder, how does the hit tool and the power evolve moving forward? And also you take into account price tag. I think Aiva is going to be less expensive than what Carlson might command, especially with Tennessee commitment now.
Yeah, no, I love that. Second one, going again, college versus prep. Seth Hernandez versus Jamie Arnold.
Seth Hernandez.
Interesting.
So this is nothing against Jamie at all. I had been on record saying that like the 5 start stretch from the beginning of April through like first week of May, he had like a 1.42 ERA in 30 some odd innings. It was like 31 in the third, 44 strikeouts, 10 walks. That was his best stretch of the year. And granted, we're kind of looking at this from what he did last year. He struck out 159 in 100 innings last year and wasn't able to replicate it, mainly because he struggled against lefties this year. They're not chasing as much on the fastball. His command's kind of taken a step back a little bit as well, which is probably a reason why lefties are kind of able to light him up a little bit more. But, still a really good changeup slider combo. I think the slider's got the best command of any secondary pitch in the entire class. But then you look at Seth Hernandez, and we bring up the highly projectable body like I did with Carlson. Hernandez is very athletic, very easy on the mound, has already touched 99 deep in the starts, has touched triple digits as recently as last August. He may have already done it this spring. I can't remember if I've seen something like that, but I know he's touched 99 in the 7th inning of starts. The fastball shape is kind of dead zoney, but like we'll talk about Arnold here. His shape is basically sinker with, modest carry is probably the best way to put it. But also it's like a 4.5 foot release height, gets 16 inches of carry at its peak. That's really good for that arm slot. Hernandez is higher and gets about the same kind of like 14-inch, 15-inch vertical, but has the running action to it, can command the fastball pretty well, has the velocity, but it's the secondaries that I think are far superior to what Arnold has. Big bending curveball, I think it's a 55. Changeup might be a 70.
That's pretty good.
It's really good separation, metrically in terms of the velocity. So like Hernandez, we mentioned, touched 99. His changeup sits around 81, 83.
That's crazy.
That's
you don't usually get that.
Yeah, that's 15 miles an hour difference of velocity, and that's really good. And he sells it very well, maintains arm speed, he lands it for strikes. I think the big thing with Hernandez moving forward is kind of working on the sequencing a little bit and making sure you can maintain that velocity, because I feel like it's a case of Paul Skeens where you lose that velocity, the fastball shape kind of becomes irrelevant. Like guys are going to see the fastball more, especially if you can't command it where you want it. But he's got the secondaries to really help him out. I think the slider cutter is more of an average pitch, but hammer curveball at 55, great for me. I think the changeup's a 7. And I think if you work on the slider a little bit, I think you get more out of it. So in terms of this is a prep right-handed pitcher demographic that has been volatile over the past few years, there are outliers. I can totally see Hernandez being the outlier, and I'll take the risk and go for it on this one.
I love it. I love that pick. I mean, yeah, I kind of agree, because I think you talked about another podcast, kind of the only preps that you've seen similar to Hernandez back in the day were like Jackson Jobe and like one other guy, which is pretty hard to find. Like I know there's that, like we've talked about, there's a risk demographic, right, with a prep arm, as there is with any. I look at the Royals and the prep arms that they've taken in the past, and Ben Kudrina, Frank Mazzucato, and Blake Walters. Like none of those guys have really panned out. But I think it's a complete different story with like Seth Hernandez. There's actually a floor there in some sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like, I don't know, man. There's going to be a time where he's going to be legitimately sitting upper 90s, and I think that's going to be sooner rather than later. I really do, because he's like 6'4", 195, but he's super wiry, super slim. This is the kind of profile you dream on projection, and Seth Hernandez absolutely has it. Plus, he already has the stuff to really make him worthwhile. So, I'm on the Seth Hernandez train. I loved him when he started at NHSI. Now like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Didn't realize it's been that long. Holy crap.
Time flies. We're about like almost 2 months from the draft. No. Well, almost a month from the draft.
Yeah, it's like 6 weeks, man. 6 weeks until the draft.
Next one I got for you. This one's kind of weird because Andrew Fischer's probably a first baseman, but we have him listed as an outfielder too. Jace LaViolette or Andrew Fischer?
Fischer.
Interesting.
I think the biggest thing with Jace is he's a platoon risk. And when you look at what I think somebody mentioned it prior in another group chat, or they've tweeted it out, which I think they have, his 256 or 258 batting average is amongst the worst among first round bats in the past, like, not just 10 years, but even beyond that. Like, it's a really, really bad figure. And kind of looking into the data a bit more, like, he handles righties fine. There's not been an issue on that, but it's the lefties that give him fits.
Which is surprising how well he did against Kade with a broken hand.
I was about to say that. Like, he handled Kade pretty well, because that's the kind of guy he struggles against. It's a guy that spins it. But if I remember correctly, does a lot of chasing on spin from the left side. And I think it was something like a 60% whiff rate coming into the SEC tournament. It's a really bad figure to have for a guy that had expectations to be 1-1 coming into the year. And I don't want to like spend too much time like dunking on Jace here, because I think when you look at Jace's profile, he's got other intangibles, other tools to kind of keep his profile afloat. 7 power from the left side, has a chance to play center field. He moves well enough for his big frame. He might be a right fielder or a left fielder at the next level. He's got that to save him. But looking at the splits against left-handed pitching, it's a 56% whiff rate on sliders with a pretty hefty chase rate at 25%. Does chase a lot of changeups. So it's really tough to kind of pinpoint. When you're talking about platoon risk, that's the kind of stuff you look for, because I feel like you're going to be chasing a lot of that moving forward, and it's not great, great. But then going to Fischer, I think Fischer is more like well-rounded bats in the SEC. Like, yes, I get it, Tennessee ballpark, he hits home runs there. I think at some point you kind of got to put that to bed a little bit.
I mean, like in Hoover, he wasn't hitting home runs, but it was like he was getting a hit every single at bat and smashing it hard. Like, it was hard contact every single time.
Yep. That's my thing, is like, he doesn't chase a ton. He walks a ton. I think he has 55 or 56 walks compared to like 35 strikeouts.
Good feel for the zone, man.
Yeah. And attacks heaters, lifts the ball in the air, a ton of pull side power, which we talked about with Neville. I look at that and go, hey, this is a guy that knows how to do damage in the air. I think it's like a 40% fly ball rate this year. If you want to know how good his barrel feel is, how good his loft is. Again, doesn't chase a ton, pretty patient, has good bat to ball skills. It's something like I think it was like a 23% whiff rate this year, which equals out to roughly like college baseball average contact rate, maybe a bit lower. But yeah, I understand he's kind of positionless. Maybe you try him in the outfield. I think he's athletic enough to do it. But whether, at the end of the day, like, first base is a good bat for him because the bat needs to perform. And I think Fischer's bat does well enough to perform at the next level.
Yeah. And he had a 500 OBP. He was on base 50% of the time in some way or another.
Stupid.
Yeah. He was just probably one of the most impressive at bats. Like watching him warm up in the batter's box, he's just completely locked in on the pitcher. He's kind of a psychopath in a little bit. Like he was like kind of banging his helmet with a bat. Like he's just like mentally, he's like confident in who he is. You could tell me like he had swagger when he was walking up to the dish. Like he just has that, he kind of exudes confidence. And I think that's what you want a guy when he's going to face the best pitchers in the SEC in an SEC tournament. Like he's going to do the same in the College World Series in the college NCAA tournament. And if they make it to the College World Series, he's going to be doing more of the same of that. Like you want that kind of competitor. And I think that's kind of what rounds him out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And like, I'm trying to think that I know the Vanderbilt series where people were complaining about the kind of antics that he was playing with. I don't know. Give me a guy with fire like that.
Yeah.
Like understands this is your biggest rival.
He cares.
Yeah. Like he's definitely a guy you look at. He cares about winning. And I get it. Like, yeah, maybe some of that was a bit far-fetched and over the line a little bit. But he plays with fire. He plays with moxie. Like, I don't know. For me, hot take, I dig that. Give me a guy that's going to go to war for your team, for your teammates. Give me that guy over anything. Because I used to be that.
Yeah.
I played with absolute fire under my ass.
He was 5 for 13 in the SEC tourney. No home runs, no RBI, but he was still productive. I don't know. He's impressive. Next one I got for you. Let's see here. Let me pull it back up. I have it somewhere. I like this one. This is 2 college arms, 2 righties. Tyler Bremner out of UC Santa Barbara or Riley Quick out of Alabama.
This is actually tough for me. It really needs to be because I love Bremner.
Yeah.
But we have talked about the fact that like he's had issues this year with his stuff backing up a bit. The fastball shape finally found it. He's got like a fastball whiff rate of like 33% this year, which I wasn't really expecting, to be honest. He found the fastball at the right time, but the slider really stepped back for me. Like last year, we were talking about a upper 80s pitch that, stupid 2-plane break, misses bats, pairs well with the changeup. But this year, it hasn't really been that. It's more of like not a lofty slider, but it has some carry to it with very minimal spin. Or not spin, but horizontal to it. So it's definitely taking a step back for me. And then looking at Riley Quick's profile, where he's got the 2 different fastballs, flat approach angle, pretty, I don't want to say fresh, but Alabama has kind of held him back a little bit because of the fact he came back from internal break so quickly. And I feel like there's more to unlock there because he's still pretty raw, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Yeah. In terms of executing and getting deep into games. I think there's more to unlock with Riley Quick than what Bremner has, where Bremner obviously has the 70-grade changeup. His fastball has finally found his shape, admittedly. But the struggle to spin has always been there with Bremner. Riley Quick has to feel to spin a good sweeper, has to feel for the changeup. I feel like there's more stuff to kind of figure out with Bremner than there is with Quick. Yeah. And Quick could also rise very quickly through the minors, depending on how or like what team he kind of gets with. So like if he's a Brewer, Brewers are probably going to do a fairly good job of taking care of that profile and moving him quickly. So, looking at that, I'll go Quick at this moment.
I like it. However,
depending on the org fit with Bremner, if they can fix the slider, I think he's better long term.
Okay.
Is that like a good enough answer?
I dig it. I like it. Last one I got for you to wrap it up here. Marek Houston, shortstop out of Wake Forest, or Steele Hall, another shortstop, prep side.
I'll go Steele on this one.
I like it.
So the biggest thing with Marek right now is he's added the weight to his profile. But and I understand he's got like 10 or 11 home runs this year, but 8 of them have been at the couch, which has been, as everybody knows, it's a trampoline. And the exit velocities aren't as big as what they were last year. Like they're marginally better compared to what he was last year. Like I think he maxed out last year like 106. This year is like 107, 108. So he's not added a ton of power to his profile. He's just aided by the ballpark he plays in. And he's kind of lost that athleticism a little bit at shortstop. Still think he's a good runner, still has good range, but you can kind of tell he's still trying to work out the intricacies of his body a little bit now that he's added this weight to it. And I think he's more filled out than what people probably think he is, personally. So I think Marek's more of a 50 hit, 40 power guy moving forward, or with the prowess to stick at shortstop. Maybe the hit tool is better, but he has taken a bit of a step back this year where he's chasing a bit more, has a bit more whiff to it. Whereas Steele Hall he's a younger profile. He reclassed from 26, has more athleticism, has grown into his body a little bit. There's robust power there. I think there's more power than what Marek has.
Yeah.
And it's borderline 80 speed. I think when you kind of compare the two together, Steele Hall is more upside. There's more high-end tools than what Marek has, because I think Marek has taken that step back a little bit. So give me Steele Hall on that one. Even with the fact that like Hall is going to add more weight and probably had the same issues as Marek, but at the same time, it's already louder than what Marek was at the beginning of the year.
I like it. I dig it. I'm not against it. I do like Marek a lot too, though. I think the defensive profile is just so good. So like if you want like a safety at the shortstop position, like you're gonna get a basically Gold Glove caliber defender, like Marek's a guy. I get your concerns too with the bat though. Like the power just hasn't built up, and so like you really need him to hit if you want to have him kind of be an everyday shortstop at the big league level.
Yeah, and like I'm not trying to sit here and obviously talk crap about these guys, because at the end of the day, Marek is a first rounder in this class. But at the same time, you kind of have these concerns of what you've seen from last year to this year, and they are noticeable. Like people do see this and they do comment on it and see what can we work on to fix at the next level. And I think the biggest thing with Marek is kind of just figuring out his body a little bit. Having this added weight to it, again, has taken him a step back a bit, but get somebody to kind of work with him to kind of get a better feel for his body. I think he could still be a above average to plus defender at shortstop once he gets it all figured out.
Yeah, no, I love it. To wrap things up, just kind of wanted to go through some of the draft content that we had out. J-Staff on our team absolutely crushed it doing MLB draft fits for each division in Major League Baseball. AL West, AL Central, AL East, every single one. I did Central, but like Jay did, I think 4 out of the 6 of the division. So be sure to check those out. They're awesome. Tyler was crushing it at ACC. I was at SEC. Will was at Big 12. Greg was at Big 10, and we have draft write-ups in there. So like we were covering the tournament in general, but at the bottom, there's some draft updates on guys that were at that. So make sure to check those out as well. Tyler's going to have an MLB Draft Top 300 board coming out soon. We're going to have Mock Draft 2.0 coming out soon. So we're getting ramped up. We're excited. Tyler, you got any final thoughts for us before we get wrapped up?
No, I'm ready to rock and roll a new laptop, get everything kind of figured out here. Biggest thing moving forward right now is obviously getting this board done. I want it done by end of this week, get it out next week for you guys. Because especially considering like I know like Joe Doyle, Carlos Collazo, all those awesome guys from other outlets have put stuff out this week. So kind of like just trying to keep up with the A ball basically, especially with all the stuff going on. And then also get the videos done. I want to get these videos done, and I want to get them out there and put them into the board to make it easier for everybody to kind of like access our YouTube. So doing that, the interviews, everything, and then obviously getting ready for 2026, man. I'm like 2 weeks away from having to start 2026 stuff.
I know. You're going to have summer stuff. USA's coming up in the summer. You got to have what's the other one? Did they have the high school invitational in the summer? They're not the high school invitational, but that's 18U.
Yep, 18U. And then we got 17U champs coming up in Cary. So I'll try and be out there for that as well to get the first look at the 26s as early as possible.
I love it. I'm gonna try to get out to the MLB Draft League. I got the Frederick Keys in town. Got guys like James Quinn Irons, Cole Lehman's gonna be out there. Some pretty good names, so it should be interesting. Yeah, we're gonna have tons of content coming draft wise. Some things are still in the planning in the works, but we might have some in-person stuff going on. Who knows? So be on the lookout for all that. Until next time, we'll see you.